failure to train for real-world operations. And so this is actually in 3 different categories. It's for the handler, which is the obvious one. It's for the dog, which I think is another obvious one. But then the third that we rarely talk about is your cover officers and the other guys that you're working with on a daily basis.
Don't chase the bites, solid advice, but be on the streets, man. Like you have to be out there working. Like you can't just be sitting back at the station waiting for the dog call to pop up. Like if you hear a call and it comes out and it's not, if you're a beat guy or if you're, a rove or however it works at your agency, but if you hear something and it sounds like, I wonder if I can fit a dog into that, go. You don't have to haul ass to get there, but go be there so when things unfold.
Welcome to Police K-9 Radio. I'm Gregg Tawney. With me, Rich Hartman. Rich, what's going on?
Today we're going to talk about some deadly sins that handlers should avoid. But before that, breaking news.
Breaking news.
There's some new case law, which I think admittedly we don't have a full grasp of, but there's some new case law that has something to do with backyards and search and seizure and the Fourth Amendment and where you can go and where you can't go.
Yeah, it's newer to us. So to the city of North Las Vegas, it's probably old news. But we'll give you our take on it because I think it's something that every canine handler should know. It's Genoa Jones versus City of North Las Vegas. And the gist of the case is there was a domestic violence call. Officers responded. From what I understand, the victim showed signs of being battered. She was at the front door, somewhat uncooperative, and the suspect ran out the back door, started hitting fences. So good agency, right? Let's set a perimeter. Let's wait for the dog. So they set a perimeter. The dog gets on scene 18 minutes later. They start doing a yard-to-yard search, looking for enhanced odor. And dog shows interest on a particular yard. So they try to contact the homeowner. And for you handlers out there, if you're going to contact a homeowner, we've decided we're doing a yard-to-yard search. There's some questions we're going to want to ask, and generally our cover officers are going to ask, and because you're not going to want to be right up there at the front door, right, with your dog. They open their door and dogs run out. So make sure your cover officers are versed on this. I have it written down or write it down for them. But number one, you go, hey, is there anybody that has a legal right to be in the backyard? Number 2, do you have any dogs or pets in the backyard? Are there any hazards in the backyard? Is your fence intact in the backyard? And here's another one that we didn't think of until recently because of an incident, and that's how we come up with all 5 of those are based upon incidences. Do you have any dog doors in your backyard? And there's a police dog that went inside the dog door, and it, obviously could be a problem. We have some agencies will post an officer or deputy with the homeowner, but then we further instruct the homeowner, hey, stay away from the doors, stay away from the windows. We're going to be searching your yard with a police dog. I say all that. I've even come around corners and boom, lo and behold, there's the homeowner's going, oh, look, I got a broken fence board. He went this way. So I go online all the way down the number 4 side till I hit the 3-4 corner, and then I pie it, and then I assess where I'm going to launch my dog from there. Or if I'm going to launch my dog from there. So in this situation, they tried to get a hold of the homeowner. No answer at the door. So there was a beware of dog sign. And from what I understand, one of I believe it's a lieutenant, actually got up and looked into the yard. They saw 3 empty kennels, 3 dog bowls. They made noise. There was no indication that there were dogs in the backyard. So I believe the lieutenant goes in the backyard. They take the dog. They pass him over into the yard. The handler goes in the yard. They start proceeding down, I assume, the number 4 side. Then 3 dogs round the corner. Who knows if they're in the house during all that, right? And I'm guessing on that, but they're in the yard at this point. They wind up having to shoot 2 of the pit bulls because they're aggressive towards the police dog, and the homeowner then had issues, and that's where we're at, right? So the Ninth Circuit ruled on this. And they said that because of the 18-minute delay, that the officers lost hot pursuit, which is one of the exigencies that we can rely on when we're making entry into yards or into houses. So they lost the hot pursuit exception, and thusly there was no qualified immunity granted to the officers that were in the backyard. They said the shooting of the pit bulls were okay because it was a spontaneous decision. There was no pre-planning in that area. But the actual presence of the officers was a violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah, and I guess there before the grace of God go us, right? Like done it hundreds of times.
Hundreds. Yes.
You know, and it was just kind of what we do.
We do it all the time. I think we still do it, and this is why we wanted to bring it up with handlers, because of if you're going to go into backyards and you haven't gotten a hold of the homeowner, you're going to want to tread lightly, especially with this recent decision, or maybe work around the yard the best you can. If you've got drones, maybe drone it first. If you can get a phone number to the homeowner, try to get a hold of them in that manner. Because let's face it, like you see a dog house in the backyard, and guess where suspects like to hide? Yeah, like to hide in dog houses. And
there's a good chance this is going to be reversed and it's going to be cleared up down the line. I mean, Ninth Circuit definitely has a tendency to have stuff reversed, although Ninth Circuit's been leaning somewhat conservative lately.
Bruce Prayett said, it's actually they've gotten some good guys in there right now. So
I don't know what happened, but I mean, and we talked about this too. We're both pet dog owners as well as in the police dog world.
I feel bad for the homeowners.
I would not love coming home and finding out that my pet dog was doing their job. Heard somebody come into the backyard, ran out the dog door, barked at them, and then got smoked for their troubles, right? Like that's nobody's going to love that, and there's going to be a lot of empathy and sympathy towards a pet owner that gets their dog killed. So
agreed. And there's actually some other case law on dogs and shooting dogs and that type of thing. So just something to be aware of as a handler. If you guys are going to go on an operation and you know that there's potentially suspect dogs, suspects with dogs on the premises, you have to have a contingency plan, and it has to be a less lethal contingency plan. It can't be, okay, we've got a shotgun, that's our plan if we run into a pit bull or another dog. And what we found that works great is a fire extinguisher.
Fire extinguisher. 100%,
over and over again.
100% success with fire extinguishers. Never had an issue with it. It works well. Big, strong dogs leave quickly.
No use of force.
Yeah.
Not even a memo, generally.
Yeah.
Just got to get a new fire extinguisher.
Yeah. That's an easy solution to a difficult problem. So fire extinguisher for that.
100%.
We're going to go into what you referred to as the 8 deadly sins for handlers. But before we do that, I kind of want to add a little context as to why what you say matters. So we're going to talk about quickly again, and we've talked about this before, but I think it matters because you're dealing with a lot of dogs, you're dealing with a lot of handlers, and as an employer of trainers, you're dealing with a lot of experience with the trainers that you have in law enforcement, K-9, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions just so you can line it out to, kind of go to credibility. How long were you a handler, and at what level of supervision did you reach in your law enforcement career? And then we'll talk about your staff and where they're at and where we're drawing this experience from.
Okay, yeah, myself, a handler for 16 years, retired out as a sergeant in charge of the unit. On our staff, we've probably got, I think most of our trainers, including you, have worked minimum of 3, typically 4 dogs on the street, so they're probably equivalent in my experience. So out of our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trainers, that's 20 dogs. I would say we probably have upwards to 100 years of experience. And then as far as on the number of dogs that we train right now, we're in the neighborhood of patrol dogs, right around 80 patrol dogs, 26 agencies. So, and I think the point being here is we've seen a lot and we've made a ton of mistakes. And by no means are we painting ourselves as like we were the model handlers.
No.
It's just we've made these mistakes along the way. And again, this is the whole point of this podcast, is that we don't want you guys to make the same mistakes we did. So learn from our screw-ups.
Hey, we'd like to welcome our new sponsor and old friend, Blackjack's Leather. Blackjack's is the true definition of a mom and pop shop. They're out in Illinois. Richard, the owner, is somebody that we work extensively with. They make leather leashes, leather collars, biothane. We get a ton of biothane from them. Biothane 3-foot, 6-foot, 20-foot, 30-foot leashes. All kinds of colors. I know everybody that's listening to the podcast is into the tactical with the greens and the coyotes and the blacks. But if you have a pet dog at home and you want your dog to be a little flashy, we love their long line biothane leashes. There's blues, there's pinks, there's oranges, yellows, all kinds of colors. Add a little flash to your program. And they really care about canine handlers. They're big on making sure that the equipment that they sell is safe for the dog and safe for the handler, and exactly what you're asking for. Blackjack's Leather, Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. Yeah, and we still have access, and I think this is the good part with your 80-plus handlers.
We're still making mistakes.
Yeah, we're still making mistakes, of course. But every week, every month, there's a new story that comes out. Hey, we did this, and this is what happened because of the podcast, because of me working with K-9s United, because of the experience. I mean, you still have people that are on your staff that are working full-time right now as K-9 handlers. So with the ongoing experience that we have and things that are just happening out on patrol yesterday, we're still gleaning that information from people that are out on the streets now, and then combining it with the information that we had from our street experience, and then taking that forward and trying to provide a better path for handlers that we're training for the future.
Agreed. And you probably add on about another 30 years of SWAT experience on top of that with our guys.
Yeah. I mean,
just our trainers.
There's a lot going on there, and I think, and a lot of mistakes, right? Like you said, there's a lot of questions that we can talk about an agency that recently reached out, and they had an apprehension, and it went really well. The apprehension part went well. The bad guy got caught, went to jail, but the sergeant contacted us and was like, "Hey, I like how the dog did, but my handler screwed up. He put himself in front of the group. He didn't have a shield. He was facing a guy that was a really bad guy, and he never drew his weapon, but he made sure that he was in front of the stack. So tactically screwed things up. Didn't have lethal force. Didn't communicate with his coworkers at the time, and the sergeant was wise enough to say, "Hey, like, we need to get this fixed." And if you take the dog out of it, I know the handler. He's a good handler, tactically sound. And we've talked about this before. You throw a dog into the mix and some people just fall apart.
See it all the time. And good on that sergeant, because everything goes right, a lot of times we're like, okay, we got the bad guy, everything went right, no coppers bit, no public bit, and then we push forward. There's that saying, and I use it over and again, don't confuse good luck with good tactics. And you guys should be debriefing every deployment that you have, no matter if everything seemed to go right or not, and you can always learn from it. So good for him is going, hey, there's some things we can work on.
We can do better. Yeah.
That's
so
great.
You came up with these 8 deadly sins, and I'm sure it was your original idea, and you didn't steal any of these from anybody else.
No. Well, unfortunately, a lot of these are actually learned experiences. But Bob Wright came up with 7 deadly sins years ago, and I don't remember what his looked like at the time, but we've just kind of taken them and shaped them and stole the title. But I like to say 8 deadly sins, one better than 7. I got one over on Bob. No, Bob's a good guy. I got no heartache with him. He did a lot for the industry.
Before we get started, what made you decide to kind of codify these things? What made you decide to put them in writing and say, like, these are the most important?
So this is something we go over in our basic handler class with all of our handlers, and it is kind of like the top things out there that I see where we're continuously making mistakes, and as an industry especially, a lot of the fuck ups, as we'll say, will fall into one of these categories. So, my thought is like, let's get ahead of this and let's start talking about it and start training, towards not making these mistakes.
Cool. Let's start with number 1. Go down the line. You can explain what they are, and I'm sure I'm going to have some questions.
All right. Here's one of the big ones right out of the gate is failure to train for real world operations. And so this is actually in 3 different categories. It's for the handler, which is the obvious one. It's for the dog, which I think is another obvious one. But then the third that we rarely talk about is your cover officers and the other guys that you're working with on a daily basis. So on the part of the handler, something we really believe in is a reality-based training. And so if you're not doing this, then I think we're making a big mistake. You guys, as handlers, generally we get 16 additional hours of training every month. Comes out to almost 200 additional hours of training a year that the general department doesn't get. So as a handler, you guys should be the most tactically sound personnel in your department. So one of the things we can do in our training, and this also goes to supervision, because of if there's any supervisors listening, I always get asked, well, what can I do as a supervisor? And I'll say, come up with scenarios that you could think that could occur on the street, brief a team of whoever's running the scenario, your decoy, your trainer, and then run it and tell the handler right from the get-go, hey, you're going to handle this like you would on the street. And then you give them all their equipment. We check them for ammo. We give them blue guns, and then give them a radio. And I don't want to hear you narrate what you would do.
Right.
I just want you, because that's what we get a lot.
Yeah.
Well, normally,
I would call
sit there.
SWAT. I would get a drone.
Do it.
Yeah.
I would pull back. Do it. And so the whole idea is that it's kind of a stress exposure training at the same time. I want to put the handler under a little bit of stress. I want them to make decisions. And then after the scenario and after we've completed it, now we debrief it. I always ask the handler, what would you do different? Because the self-critique is, I think, really powerful. And sometimes they'll come up with stuff that I didn't even think of. I'm like, oh, shit, yeah, you're right. You probably should have done that. I'm glad you brought that up. And then if there's another handler with them, and this is where vulnerability really comes in, you have to take the scenario seriously. And I find the guys that are the most insecure about this, and if you guys run scenarios, you probably already know in their unit, the guys that are like lackadaisical, they're laughing, like they're not taking it serious, it's because they are insecure and they don't want to be exposed. So I always give the preface of like, hey, these scenarios are designed to be pretty damn difficult. I expect you guys to make mistakes. And this is what we tell all our handlers. I expect you to make mistakes at training because we don't want you to make them in the field. So if we're going to make them, I want to do it in this environment. And if the scenarios are being played out and they're doing everything perfectly, guess what? My scenarios are way too easy.
Right.
So handlers are in full uniform, full gear. They're given a set of circumstances and go. And then I always say you've got the worst cover possible. And I tell the cover officer, because what's one of the problems we make, right? Is we're
cover
always
officer starts looking in cabinets, looking under beds.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey, stop that,
here.
right? Get over there. Stop looking through that shit. Get behind me. Or they go into the room and the handler hasn't designated tasks, and now their cover's actually doing things that to help the handler. I go, no.
Yeah.
I go, you got the guys that are just out of field training, and that's who you're operating with, and then push forward. And so it's more realistic because usually we're training with other handlers. So even organizing an arrest, we push in, and if you're training with other handlers, one guy's already grabbing the arm, the other guy's keeping lethal. No, you don't do any of that. Like you're going to act like an officer that's never been around dogs, and it's up to the handler to actually verbalize, grab that arm, do this, you stay lethal. If they have time to prepare, then I want them to give assignments, right? We're seeing that on Time on Bite. Hey, you guys better be giving these assignments before you deploy. So if it's worked up to a situation where in this scenario, we're like, okay, it's time to deploy the dog. Did they take the time that everybody on scene knew their task before that dog was gone? Because what we're seeing is guys deploying dogs and also like, hey, you're going to be hands-on. No, you're going to be lethal. The dog is already biting, and we've lost that window.
The clock is ticking.
And we've created it.
Hey, we'd like to welcome our new sponsor and old friend, Blackjack's Leather. Blackjack's is the true definition of a mom and pop shop. They're out in Illinois. Richard, the owner, is somebody that we work extensively with. They make leather leashes, leather collars, biothane. We get a ton of biothane from them. Biothane 3-foot, 6-foot, 20-foot, 30-foot leashes. All kinds of colors. I know everybody that's listening to the podcast is into the tactical with the greens and the coyotes and the blacks. But if you have a pet dog at home and you want your dog to be a little flashy, we love their long line biothane leashes. There's blues, there's pinks, there's oranges, yellows, all kinds of colors. Add a little flash to your program. And they really care about K-9 handlers. They're big on making sure that the equipment that they sell is safe for the dog and safe for the handler, and exactly what you're asking for. Blackjack's Leather, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you.
So
before we move on to number 2, just a question on that, and I think I know the answer. There are times where we're not doing tactical test stuff, we're not doing scenario stuff, we're focusing on the dog. And I guess I just want to clarify that not every training minute has to be scenario-based training. Sometimes we're standing at the doorway because I want to know exactly what the dog's doing. Like we have to focus on the dog's behavior, but we're clear about that. Not tactical. This isn't a scenario. We're focusing on the dog in this situation. Don't treat it like a call.
Yeah. Right? So this would be something where we go, hey, we're going to do a reality-based scenario, and maybe it's at the end of training. And we've already worked basic skills. We've done some problem solving. So this isn't like our entire day is in this mode, because you do have to break down and do the fundamentals with the dog and with handlers and that type of thing. So absolutely. But it will teach you. We've seen guys have problems getting to their gear. We've seen guys bailing out of cars and shit falling off their vest and sliding across the parking lot. If that e-collar isn't muscle memory, then that's a problem. Or they grab the dog with one hand and they've got the gun in the other, and then they can't work the radio or they can't work their e-collar, and you're not gonna know these things if you're just showing up in your t-shirt and your BDUs or jeans and your damn e-collars in your pocket. You are missing the boat. You're really missing a window of opportunity that you could make yourself better.
Let's move on to number 2.
Okay. Oh, and one more thing on that. Also preparing the dog. Dog should be seeing different pictures, realistic pictures.
Different locations.
Different locations. We are big on going into public and training. So we'll go behind a shopping center and we'll clear it first. And then I have a safety officer that's making sure they're keeping an eye out for somebody on a bike or a civilian or whatever. I already made sure there's no transients. But if you don't trust your guys to go into a public environment to train, then how are we trusting them to go into a public environment to deploy? And I don't want the first time that officer goes out and deploys to be like, oh, wow, this isn't our training area that's completely fenced. I want them to learn the lessons the hard way in public. And then that's where we bring the bite suit with the head. It's the Shelby head. That's basically our transient. And I put her out there. And
we see it sometimes, and I've seen it where you have a track or a search, and we're in an industrial area, and somebody's coming to the edge of the building, and there's an opportunity to make a left or a right. And when they're in a safe area that's not public, a lot of times they just hit the corner and go.
Dog rounds the corner first.
Yeah, and has nobody cares, right? Like they're like, this is a safe place. We've already cleared it. But then you go out into public. Now they're moving out. They're pieing the corner. They're looking to see. They're down in the dog because who knows who's camped out next to the dumpster around that corner. And that's important that you think that way, because that's going to, in our lovely state, that's going to pop up on almost every deployment.
Yeah, and no better place to get those skills than at training.
Yeah.
Do we want to make these mistakes on the street?
Absolutely not.
No. And then the other one is cover officers, and we already have an episode, a briefing training out there. And so if you guys haven't looked it up, look it up. It's designed to be 20 minutes. Take it into your briefing, play it, or listen to it, make up your own. I don't really care, but make sure that you are training your briefing team every time you get a new team. And you should have, whenever there's a new hire, you should at least get 4 hours of K-9 in their field training.
Number 2,
failure to communicate, cover officers with dispatch. And again, this would come into the reality-based training, and also with communicating with suspects appropriately, right? Yep. So the big thing here is, again, during the reality-based training, make sure your handlers are using the radio, especially if they're by themselves in that particular scenario. It adds a whole nother layer. And then, like we talked about with cover, are we briefing before we deploy? If a cover officer is pushing ahead and doing something they're not supposed to, are we calling them and check? And hey, come back here. What is your briefing before you've even gone out, and what's the experience with your team that you're searching with?
Yeah, and whether you like it or you're prepared for it or not, like when K-9 shows up, you have to be ready, and you can do this in conjunction with the patrol sergeant if there's a patrol sergeant out there, but you have to be ready to lead a scene. And that means you don't get to always be up front, dog leading the way. You have to communicate with people, who has the shield, who's going to be on the arrest team, all of that.
Agreed.
Number 3.
Failure to maintain equipment. If you're running an e-collar, that thing should be charged, ready to go. When you get it, put that dog in your car and you're getting ready to drive to work, it should be on. All your collars should be ready to go. All the equipment should be gone. It should be, when you pull out of that driveway, you're ready for that call.
What about the guy with the leather leash that's been folded and it's cracking? And it's like, at some point you can either get a new leash or you can care for the one that you have. They have mink oil and everything else out there that you can work on your equipment with. And you see some guys that just don't.
Yeah. And this goes for your other equipment too. Harness. We've seen guys with frays in their harness. We've seen guys with their long lines. It's like you're trying to save pennies, but you're going to pay pounds, I guess is the terminology. Gas masks. It's something as simple as that. If you're running a dog, chances are you're going to be on a perimeter, or if you're making entry with the SWAT team, obviously you would have a gas mask. But we've had guys sitting out there sucking up gas on the perimeter because, their filter was defective in their gas mask.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it a little bit in the medical one that we had with Brady, but I think it's also important that when people go to your car, they know what's there. Like, hey, I need you to grab a long line. I need you to grab my med kit. I need you to, whatever it is. If they open up your trunk and it just looks like a jumbled mess in there, they're not going to be able to help you, right? Like that needs to be organized somewhat. And I like to have my medical stuff in a red bag. I mean, everything that we get issued is black, right? Yep. Cops like black, green, but there needs to be a way for people to understand, like, oh, he asked for this equipment for the dog and they're not the handler. You need to make it easier for your cover to find what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's super easy when we're at training, right? And you can have the time to pull stuff out. But now let's have a critical incident. The dog's been shot or stabbed. It's raining. It's 2:00 in the morning. And now they got to go through all your shit in the back.
Yeah.
Is it organized before you leave the house? And if you pulled everything out, are you putting everything back? Rich, like you mentioned, I like the medical stuff in red, and I like the muzzle, whatever muzzle you're going to use, to be hanging right there. If you're going to use the Baskerville for a medical emergency, which allows the dog to breathe, or if you just got the cloth one, it's in red and it's easy to find.
Yep.
Cool.
Next.
Failure to plan. If it can go wrong, it will. And this really came into view a few years ago when we were seeing, and I was guilty of it on one deployment, guys having tough time getting their dogs off the bite. So my experience happened in front of Winco, and I always say my dog verbally outed every single time until the day he didn't. Mm-hmm. And that was about bite number 7, and the guy rolled on top of him, and I think it hurt him. And then he was like...
It got personal for him, right?
It got personal.
Yeah.
And I was out there, I grabbed a hold of him, and I told him to release, and he didn't. And then I went to my e-collar, and my e-collar didn't work. And at that time, he was on the ground, so I couldn't... It was really hard to get a lift off. And so I had kind of run out of ideas, and people were walking, hey, officer, can I help you? And everything's fine. Nothing to see here. Just trying to get my dog off this guy. So
that was pre-iPhone.
That was pre-iPhone. Yeah. It was kind of around, but not many people had it. Anyway, so you guys should have, we train at like 5 different ways to get our dogs off a bite. You guys should have your top 3. So whether that's, and obviously a verbal out with no back pressure is number 1. We all train verbal outs. We've had the podcast on verbal outs. We're a strong believer in verbal outs. There's times you're going to do a verbal out. Verbal out doesn't always work. So let's call it what it is. So you need to have backups. So it's great that your dog does a verbal out in training, but let's plan for when they don't do it on the street. So verbal out is number 1. Number 2, everybody should always have an e-collar on. It baffles my mind right now when I ever hear of that there's an officer out there deploying without an e-collar, but I guess it still happens. So e-collars, number 2, potentially. Number 3, you should know how to do a lift off. Number 4, you should be able to do a breaker bar. And generally, if you have those 4 ways to get your dog off a bite, and there's actually plenty more, depending on what group you do. I know that some do the, where they take the airway here with the pinch. I don't feel comfortable with it, but I don't medically worry. It's not something I do. Some do the flank. I'm not a fan of the flank. It creates that distrust, and you're adding pain, and you better be quick because now he's coming around to address that pain, which is your hand on the flank. So hasn't been one of my favorites either. But honestly, I don't care what your method is, as long as it's humane. But I don't care what order it is because it's different. We have some dogs that a breaker bar goes in their mouth and then they won't let go of the breaker bar.
Right.
And then we have some dogs that respond really well to e-collar, and we have some dogs that don't. And we have some dogs you can get an easy lift off, and some dogs you don't. Doesn't matter what mine are or what Rich's are. It matters what yours is. And so you need to know the top 3 or 4, and you need to practice them throughout training, not just do it once or twice. And we talk about the reality-based training with full uniform. That's another thing I like is, number 1, what's the number 1 thing on all your equipment that you need to address without thinking about it? It's generally your gun.
And your e-collar.
And then number 2 is your e-collar, because you don't have time to look around. And then number 3, I would say, can you get to your breaker bar, and can you get to it with both hands?
And I think that goes back to the scenario-based training and training in full equipment. You should be able to do this in pitch black, right? Like, correct. We all know how to get to our holster. And we all know how to draw, reholster, all that. Lights out, lights on, doesn't matter. Are you as well equipped, if you're blindfolded, to manipulate your e-collar, to manipulate your brake stick, to handle all those things without having to look and see where everything is? Yeah. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. There's only one brand of dog food that we use and recommend. That is Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. Inukshuk was created for working dogs and continues to be the top choice for all working dogs, from hunting dogs to sled dogs and of course, police canines. Whether it be detection or patrol canines, visit inukshukpro.com, or you can find all of the formulas on chewy.com.
Fun extra. We ran this with Sonoma County guys. We had their send them dog into the bathroom on a bite, and then I took a bag, and I'm like, "You're gonna have to trust me here. I'm putting this bag on your head
as they go to the bathroom."
And I'm gonna guide. It took a lot of trust. They didn't know me that well then, so they trusted me. And then when we guided them into the bathroom, put hands on their dog, and now it's like, okay, let's see you get your dog off a bite, and I turn their e-collar all the way down, or can they get their breaker bar? Do they know where it's at? Can they work their e-collar without looking at it? Can they reach it? Can they adjust the volume if they need to? All of that. So great exercise for you guys that you want to do something fun at training. It's a little dangerous because you got this dog on a bite and the handler kind of coming up. So
it's also a good time to really establish, do you have conflict with your dog or not? If you have a lot of conflict with your dog and you're playing that game at that point, there's going to be big problems, right? Like,
yes.
One, your dog's going to be spinning left and right and trying to get away from you. But, that's not a good time for you to be not knowing how you're getting your dog off and
correct.
What's going to happen after that. So
and keep their head back. Don't let them lean over the dog and the dog going, what the hell is that? It's like something to bite.
Come and get you.
It's a little hairy, but it's a good exercise.
And now they're wearing a bite sleeve on their head.
That's right. Exactly. Don't do it in a burlap sack, for God's sakes. We have this sleeve cover that we put over his head.
What could go wrong?
I'm not taking responsibility for that.
What are we on? Are we on number 6?
Changing solid tactics when the dog is at it. Man, we see this all the frickin' time.
We were talking about this you guys aren't going to believe this, but we talk to each other all the time about this stuff so that when we come here, we're kind of somewhat prepared. But we were talking about this today, and I guess I just mentioned it with that other unit, but we get a lot of handlers that are really squared away. They start class and like, man, these guys are whiz bangs. And if you ask them to do a building search, they'd be all about it. Hard wall, flow and fill, they got it figured out. You put a dog with them, instant retard.
Yes.
I mean,
and they'll even say it. They'll go like halfway through the handler question, I'm doing shit I would never do. I'm exposing myself. I'm doing this. I would never have done this without the dog.
Yeah, we've seen it a couple times, and we won't name the agency because it doesn't really matter. But there's a couple of vehicle extractions where you got 3 or 4 agencies standing in the middle of the freeway. There's a guy holding a shield, and he's like 5 cops back, and then there's a K-9 handler that's out in the middle of the freeway.
Shield always winds up number 4 in these things.
Yeah,
and I don't know.
Good for the 8 people that are behind the shield, but the 4 people that are in front of it is a problem, right? Like it's,
oh yeah.
But if you
100%.
took the dog out of that mix, I guarantee everybody would be like behind the shield, locked in, moving up, controlled. You just throw a dog in the mix, and handlers' eyes roll back in their head, and they just get dog focused.
Vehicle extractions are a great example of that. And you just go on YouTube and you see it. And again, we're confusing good luck with good tactics. It all ends up okay, so everything is okay. But it really isn't. And here, I'm a firm believer in this as well. So every agency has a different way of clearing a building. So now some of you guys are out there doing the slow pie at the threshold. Others are just, boom, taking the room and setting and holding. Integrate the dog into what tactics you're already doing. You should not be changing tactics. This goes for SWAT as well. Tactics should not be changed because the dog is integrated. Whatever the department's tactics are, however you guys are doing building searches, you as the handler need to find a way to work that dog in as another element throughout the search. But don't change the way they're doing things just for the addition of the dog.
And I'm going to go a little bit further, and I think this is important. And I did this because I knew I lacked when I was on patrol. And I just talked to a good friend of mine who runs some SWAT units out in Indiana. And I think if you're serious about your K-9 stuff and you haven't been part of a tactical team, go hang out with the SWAT guys. Go hang out with the SWAT guys at your agency and learn how to tactically clear a building.
Yeah.
Learn what they're doing, why they're doing it the way they're doing, talk their lingo. You need to understand the 1, 2, 3, and 4 side of a building. If you're not talking like that and you're showing up and like, hey, you go to the side over there by the bedroom window, like you can't control a scene if you're not tactically sound. And not everybody's perfect. Not everybody is tactically sound. So go make yourself tactically sound. Go hang out with the SWAT guys and be like, hey, I'm not here to try and get on the SWAT team, but I'm here to learn more, and I want to learn the lingo. I want to see how you're searching, and I want to see how me and my dog are going to fit into a tactical search. Can't hurt.
Agreed. Supervisors, do not give a guy a dog that is not already tactically sound, can communicate effectively, already really knows the job well in patrol. It will not get better. It shines a light on their deficiencies, and it is a mess, and it's a liability. And so I'm just coming off of this, we just had a handler that didn't make it in one of our basics, and it sucks for him. It sucks for me. It sucks for the agency, and this could have been avoided because I think in your selection process, you really need to be careful and just know that by giving someone a dog, it's not going to like elevate them in what they're doing. If anything, it really, when we give handlers dogs, it actually, they take a step back and a step down, and then they have to work back up to where they were.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do your job when you're worried about this living, breathing, thinking creature that is pretty damn motivated to get out in front. Like, you got to keep that thing safe. You got to keep you safe. I got to communicate with all these other cover officers. Like, there's a lot going on. So you're right. If you show up deficient, it's only going to expose those deficiencies.
Yeah, and it's not fair to put that handler in that situation, because we've got guys that are really trying hard and they're just not there in their career. Not saying that they're not going to get there one day, and then it's important to recognize that and make the tough decision, which is hard for everybody, and that's to not have them deploy.
Yeah, and I mean, before we move on, I think I mean, on a personal note, I'd like to see agencies expect more out of their handlers. I'd like to see, like, during the selection process, and we have some really good agencies that we work with where, like, they are really regimented, and then we know of some other agencies that are like, hey, we have a spot to fill, and we don't want to lose that spot, so good enough. You can go in there, you want it, and you have a heartbeat, and you look good in sunglasses.
Yeah, freeze the spot.
Freeze it.
Yeah, it's too important.
Well, and
too much liability. And lives are on stake.
Bad things can happen with the agency down the line. Anyway, enough of that.
Okay.
Number 7.
Chasing the bite. None of us ever have done that. Moving on.
Yeah, can we skip that one?
Okay. Hey, we're new. We're out there. We've been through a lot of training. We're not sure our dog is going to engage. And we start... And to get on scene and actually have a dog deployment, like, you do have to get there quickly. But we wind up doing things that we normally wouldn't do. And it goes back to that kind of changing solid tactics, once we add the dog. Try not to do that. Get to scene on safely. Here's what we're seeing. Most handlers are losing the dog, not because of what they're doing with the dog. It's because of driving. And they're trying to get to the scene way too fast, and they're doing it in a dangerous manner. And guys, I mean, the gig's up. All that stuff is captured on cameras. So, chasing the bite is probably one of the big ones. This is where we try to tell the new guys, just slow down. It's a marathon, not a race. There's not one deployment that's worth your career or your life or somebody else's.
I'm going to be a little devil's advocate on this one, and trust me, I chase the bite, and I should not have. But don't chase the bites. Solid advice, but be on the streets, man. Like, you have to be out there working. Like, you can't just be sitting back at the station waiting for the dog call to pop up. Like, you have to be pulling over cars. You have to be going, like, if you hear a call and it comes out, and it's not, if you're a beat guy, or if you're, a rove, or however it works at your agency, but if you hear something and it sounds like, I wonder if I can fit a dog into that, go. You don't have to haul ass to get there, but go be there, so when things unfold, you're ready. You hanging out at the coffee shop waiting for something to happen isn't going to get you into a dog call. And that's the problem, is like, now the burglary turns into an active thing, right? Where the guy's still on scene, and now patrol's asking for a dog, and you're sitting across town on TikTok.
We're in the PD digging around.
Yeah. Now you have to haul ass to get there because you really want to be part of it, and you want to show that you're.
Next thing you know, it takes you 18 minutes to get on scene. You lost hot pursuit, and everybody's in trouble. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So I think, and this is where it comes. We go back to selection, right? That you select the right person. You're selecting them because they're already a busy cop. They're already tactically sound. They're out there making arrests. They want to be involved. Now you don't have to chase. You're going to show up, and they're going to unravel for you. Like, it's going to be there because you're just a busy cop. And if you're a busy cop in any decent agency, you're going to find dog work.
Agreed. All right, moving on.
One.
Is it the last one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. And we'll go failure to document appropriately, and that's just writing a good report. Not going to go too deep into this. We could spend a whole podcast on report writing, but here's what I recommend. Get a copy of your policy, write your report accordingly, make sure everything that was in your mind is in your report. I like to bulletproof. bullet point. I like to bulletproof my report, but bullet point it, and I outline, seriousness of the offense, what kind of resistance, the danger, expel out the danger to the public, to the officers, and that could be into like the baggy clothing, the potential to being armed, the crime that was occurred, and then, everything that you were thinking, again, the totality of the circumstances, but you can bullet point that and make it real easy in the report. But we got to write more. You should never have a bite report that's like a half page.
Yeah, and that last interview we did with Bruce Prayett, I think he was talking about like that's the easiest way for cops to get in trouble in general is not write enough, not be detailed enough. But K-9, obviously, even more, any use of force is you probably want to spend a little extra time at the computer, making sure everybody sees what you saw. And I think that's the hardest thing is it seems like those use of force things kind of happen at the end of shift. And then you're like, I got to write about this thing. And then you get in there and you want to whip out something relatively quick so you can get home. That ain't the time.
No.
And the worst place to be embarrassed is on the stand.
Yep.
So
especially now, and we're talking about time on bite, like really articulate why you did what you did and maybe why it took you an extra 5 or 6 seconds to do something for officer safety reasons, because if you don't write it in that report, it's going to be tough to talk about it later.
Yep.
Okay.
Last one.
Well, last one's failure to take care of yourself.
Ooh, that matters?
Yeah, kind of. So there's the 4 horsemen. Have you heard of the 4 horsemen? If you guys ever listen to Dr. Peter Attia, let's see if I can remember this. So we got cardiovascular, right? We got, which is the ticker, heart. We have neurological. We have metabolic.
One more.
And I think the 4th one is cancer. That's the 4 horsemen that you have to face. But here's some things that they're coming out with, and for you guys, and I know the crowd I'm talking to, number 1, sleep is super important. Do what you can, okay? Blackout curtains. Try not to use too many supplements to get your brain to sleep, i.e. legal marijuana.
And not too many supplements to keep your brain awake, right? Like, you hit a Celsius at 2 hours before quitting time. Good luck. Can you fall asleep? Yeah. Is it going to be great sleep?
Yeah. You want to use like the 6-hour minimum kind of time frame, I think. Sugar is the devil, processed sugar. Don't eat it, don't drink it or eat it alone. Wrap it with something else, some fats and some proteins. So stay away from sugar the best you can. And I'm not saying we're freaking Mormons here.
How was your diet in your 20s?
Yeah. Terrible. And it's still struggle with it, right? But exercise, weightlifting, been known to help. Meditation, sauna, which, we talk about sauna box all the time. I was in the sauna this morning, getting out, moving, getting sleep, and then just try to eat sensibly. Like that's where it's at.
Yeah, and we get it. Like I worked graves almost my whole career because that was the best place to catch bad guys, right? Like that was the fun place to take a dog and be able to use a dog swings in graves. I liked working nights, but that meant that sleep suffered. It just did, man. I would wake up to use the restroom or something. I'd catch a little bit of sunlight and then I'd be like, ooh, I could go outside and complete this task and that task. And then you show up to work tired. And the next thing you know, you're hitting an energy drink within the first hour. And then you need one in the 7th. My son's a cop right now and he talks about it all the time. His body's hurting. He's tired, he's doing, and I'm like, he's early 20s, right? As a 50-something-year-old father, I'm telling him like, dude, it only gets worse. He's still kind of invincible. It's hard for him to fathom what it's like to be 50-something because he's 20-something, right? But it comes on quick. And if you're feeling those things in your 20s and your 30s, that's the time to do something about it. The good thing now is there's a ton more education out there for young cops. When we started, the culture was you got off work and you drank. Half the cops were smoking. Nobody was going to the gym, other than to do some bench press to look cool. But nobody was doing any active. Like it was just not a healthy time. The education's out there. People know it. People know how to meditate. People know how to do the saunas and the cold plunges and all that. Like it's out there. Take advantage of the information that's there and make your career last a little bit longer and better.
Agreed.
So those are your 8. And I'm guessing now that you've been in this business for a few minutes, there's probably a couple extras.
There's so many aspects to this job. Like that is just for those of you that aren't handlers, like we're just barely scratching the surface here. These are kind of the big 8, but we could probably put a list of about 30 things that are getting us into trouble. And so my advice is to slow down. Do not chase the bite. As far as like Rich said, be out there, be active, be on scene. But every time I got in trouble, I was moving way too fast. And so slowing down, train hard, prepare yourself mentally. I still go back to the Vince Bingaman episode where he goes out in the garage, he draws his gun, he's ready. He's got himself mentally ready when he's getting in the car. He's not thinking of 100 things. Take care of yourself, communicate with your cover, get proper training. If you have issues with your dog, get out there and help. If your training group isn't helping you, reach out to somebody else locally. Reach out to Rich and I. Happy to help the best we can. And go forth and prosper. It's a freaking tough job, but it's the greatest one in law enforcement.
Greatest one out there. In the meantime,
train hard
and be safe.